The rain pounded the roof of the old Victorian house, each drop a hammer against my heart. I lay on the guest room bed, staring at the ceiling, where shadows danced like ghosts of words I'd never say. Downstairs, Ethan's laugh deep, reckless, a live cut through the storm, and I hated how it made me ache. I'd known Ethan Carter for 3 years, ever since his younger brother, Jamie, dragged me into their chaotic, warm family in Portland, Oregon. Jamie and I met freshman year at Reed College, bonding over late-night study sessions and a shared love for obscure indie bands. He was my best friend, the kind of person who'd give you his jacket in a blizzard and never mention it. But Ethan was a wildfire, 6 years older, with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass and eyes that held secrets like a locked diary. He was everything I shouldn't want. Yet every time he walked into a room, my world tilted. I was just Jamie's friend to him, the quiet guy who showed up for Sunday dinners, who laughed at his mom's bad puns and helped with dishes. Ethan didn't know I memorized the way his hands moved when he talked, or that I'd lie awake at night, my pillow damp with tears, because loving him felt like shouting into a void. That night, the storm wasn't just outside. It was in me, too. Jamie had invited me to stay over after a late study session, and Ethan, home from his latest freelance photography gig, was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. I caught his eye earlier, just for a second, when I dropped a fork and he'd handed it back. His fingers brushed mine, and it was like lightning sharp, fleeting, dangerous. I mumbled a thanks and fled to the kitchen, my face burning. Now, alone in the guest room, I clutched my phone, scrolling through Ethan's Instagram. Photos of misty forests, neon-lit city streets, and candid shots of strangers filled his feed. There was one of Jamie, mid-laugh, that made my chest tighten. Ethan saw the world through a lens that made everything beautiful. But he never saw me. The door creaked open, and I froze. Jamie poked his head in, his curly hair a mess. "Yo, Lucas, you good? You've been weird all night." I forced a smile. "Just tired, man. Long day." He squinted, unconvinced, but didn't push. "All right, but don't stay up all night pining over some mystery crush you won't tell me about." He grinned, oblivious to how close he was to the truth, and shut the door. I buried my face in the pillow. Jamie didn't know. Nobody did. I was Lucas Nguyen, the dependable friend, the scholarship kid who kept his head down and his heart locked away. Growing up in a strict Vietnamese-American household, I'd learned early to hide parts of myself. My parents loved me, but their love came with expectations: good grades, a stable career, a nice girl to marry. Coming out wasn't an option. Not when their pride in me was the only thing keeping us tethered. But Ethan made hiding impossible. He was chaos and freedom, the kind of person who'd climb a fire escape to watch a sunrise or argue about philosophy until 3 a.m. Every time he smiled, it was like he was daring me to be brave. And I wasn't. The next morning, I shuffled into the kitchen, where Ethan was already at the counter, flipping pancakes. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and he wore a faded band tee that hugged his shoulders just right. "Morning, guest," he said, not looking up. "You like your pancakes burned or edible?" I laughed, too loud, and grabbed a mug to hide my nerves. "Edible, please. I'm not that desperate." He smirked, sliding a plate toward me. Don't tempt me to test that theory. My heart stuttered, but I played it cool, sitting at the table with Jamie, who was ranting about a professor's unfair grading. Ethan joined us, his knee brushing mine under the table. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. He didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't care. To him, I was just Lucas Jamie's shadow, the guy who was always around. But I wasn't. I was drowning in him. That weekend, Jamie dragged me to a local art gallery where Ethan was showcasing his photos. The space was packed with Portland's hipster crowd-tattooed baristas, poets in berets, and musicians clutching craft beers. Ethan stood by his display, talking animatedly to a woman with pink hair. His hands moved like he was painting the air, and I couldn't look away. "You're staring," Jamie whispered, nudging me. I flinched. "Am not." "Whatever. Dude, you've got that look again." He sipped his drink, eyeing me over the rim. "You gonna tell me who's got you all moony? Or do I have to guess?" I forced a laugh. "Nobody. Just appreciating the art." He rolled his eyes but let it go. I wandered toward Ethan's photos, each one a window into his soul. There was a shot of a rain-soaked street, the neon lights bleeding into puddles, and another of an old man feeding pigeons in a park, his face etched with stories. I stopped at one of a lone figure on a cliff, staring at the ocean. The caption read, "Chasing what you can't name." "That one's my favorite," Ethan said, suddenly beside me. His voice was low, almost intimate, and I nearly dropped my drink. "It's intense." I managed. "What's it about?" He shrugged, his eyes on the photo. "Wanting something you're not sure you're allowed to have. You ever feel that?" My breath caught. He couldn't know. Could he? "Yeah," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "All the time." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, the noise of the gallery faded. His eyes searched mine, like he was seeing me for the first time. Then someone called his name, and he was gone, pulled back into the crowd. I stood there, my heart pounding, wondering if I'd imagined it. The weeks that followed were torture. Ethan was around more, crashing at the house between gigs. Every interaction felt like a tightrope walk, one wrong step, and I'd fall. He'd tease me about my nerdy sweaters or ask my opinion on a photo, and I'd overanalyze every word. Was he flirting? Or was he just being Ethan? Charming and oblivious. One night, Jamie was out, and it was just me and Ethan in the living room, watching some terrible sci-fi movie. I was curled up on one end of the couch, trying not to notice how close he was. The TV flickered, casting shadows on his face. "You're quiet tonight," he said, glancing over. "What's up?" I shrugged, my throat tight. "Just thinking." "About what?" He turned, giving me his full attention. And it was too much. Nothing important. I stood, needing to escape. "I'm gonna grab some water." He caught my wrist as I passed, his grip gentle but firm. "Lucas, come on. You've been weird for weeks. Did I do something?" His touch burned, and I pulled away, my heart racing. "No, you didn't. I'm fine." He stood, closing the distance between us. "You're not fine. Talk to me." I wanted to. God, I wanted to tell him everything, how his laugh was my favorite sound, how I dreamed of his hands on me, how loving him was killing me. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I shook my head and bolted upstairs, locking myself in the guest room. I didn't cry that night. I was too angry at myself, at him, at the world for making this so hard. The next morning, I avoided the kitchen, sneaking out before Ethan or Jamie woke up. The air was crisp, the streets of Portland slick with last night's rain. I walked aimlessly, my sneakers splashing through puddles, trying to outrun the ache in my chest. But Ethan's voice talked to me, followed me, looping in my head like a song I couldn't shake. I ended up at a coffee shop, the kind with mismatched chairs and poetry scrawled on the walls. I ordered a latte and sat by the window, watching the world move on without me. My phone buzzed with a text from Jamie. "Where'd you go? Dude, Ethan's asking about you." My stomach twisted. Why would Ethan ask? Was he worried? Or just curious about the weird kid who ran off? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook and started writing, something I hadn't done in months. Words spilled out raw, messy, honest. Lines about longing, about hiding, about loving someone who didn't even know you existed. It wasn't poetry. Not really. But it was mine. When I got back to the house, Ethan was gone, off to some shoot in Seattle. The relief was sharp, but so was the disappointment. Jamie didn't mention the night before, and I was grateful. I threw myself into school, burying my feelings in essays and exams. But Ethan was everywhere, in the way Jamie tilted his head, in the photos on the fridge, in the quiet moments when I let myself hope. A month later, Ethan was back. It was Thanksgiving, and the Carter house was chaos: relatives, neighbors, and too much food crammed into every corner. I'd been invited, as always, because my parents were visiting family in California, and Jamie insisted I shouldn't be alone. I didn't argue. The truth was, I wanted to see Ethan. He was in the backyard, setting up a bonfire, his breath visible in the chilly air. I watched from the porch, my hands stuffed in my pockets, torn between joining him and running. He spotted me and waved me over. "Yo, Lucas, help me with this. You're not just here to eat all the pie, right?" I laughed, the sound shaky, and grabbed some kindling. We worked in silence for a while, the crackle of the fire filling the space between us. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and I stole glances at him, his face glowing in the firelight. "You're good at this," he said, nodding at the fire. "Got a secret pyromaniac side." I snorted. "Yeah, that's me. Setting fires and breaking hearts." He grinned, but there was something in his eyes, something curious, searching. "You don't talk much about yourself. You know that." I shrugged, poking at the flames. "Not much to tell." "Bullshit." He leaned closer, his voice low. "You're always watching, Lucas. Like you're trying to figure out the world without letting it figure you out." My heart stopped. He saw a mural I saw meaned it terrified me. "Maybe I just like observing," I said, my voice barely steady. He didn't push, but he didn't look away either. The moment stretched, heavy with things unsaid, until Jamie called us in for dinner. Thanksgiving dinner was loud, warm, and overwhelming. Ethan sat across from me, passing dishes and cracking jokes, his knee brushing mine under the table again. I told myself it was an accident, but my skin burned where we'd touched. After dessert, the adults drifted to the living room, and Jamie dragged me to the basement for a round of pool. "You're off your game," Jamie said, sinking a shot. "What's up with you and Ethan?" I nearly dropped my cue. "What?" He smirked. "Come on, man. You think I don't notice? You get all weird when he's around. Like, blushing level weird." I laughed. Too loud. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" He leaned on the table, his eyes sharp. "Look, I don't care who you're into, Lucas. You're my best friend. But if it's Ethan, just be careful. Okay. He's not exactly the settling down type." I wanted to argue, to say he was wrong, but the words stuck. Jamie didn't know how deep it went. How Ethan wasn't just a crush but a wound I couldn't stop picking at. I nodded, muttering something about focusing on school, and we played on in silence. Later, I found Ethan alone on the porch, staring at the stars. The bonfire was dying, embers glowing faintly. I hesitated, then sat beside him, the cold wood biting through my jeans. "Nice night," he said, not looking at me. "Yeah." I swallowed, my heart pounding. "Ethan, about last month. I'm sorry I ran off. I just don't." He turned, his eyes soft but intense. "You don't owe me an explanation." But I meant it. "Lucas, you can talk to me." I wanted to. I wanted to tell him I loved him, that I'd loved him since the first time he laughed at one of my dumb jokes, that I was terrified of what it meant. But fear won, and I just nodded. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're a mystery. You know that. I can't figure you out." "Maybe that's a good thing," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me, and for a second, I thought he might say something that would change everything. But then his phone buzzed, and he glanced at it. The moment gone. Winter came, and with it, quiet ache. Ethan was around less, his photography taking him to places I only saw in his posts. I tried to move on, even went on a date with a guy from my literature class. He was nice, funny, safe. But he wasn't Ethan. One night, Jamie threw a party at the house, a mix of college friends and locals. The living room was packed, music thumping, and I was nursing a beer, trying to blend into the background. Ethan showed up late, his camera slung around his neck, his smile brighter than the string lights. He found me in the corner, leaning against the wall, hiding. He teased, grabbing a beer from the cooler. "Just taking it all in," I said, echoing his words from the gallery. He laughed, stepping closer. "You're good at that. Seeing things other people miss." My breath hitched. He was close, too close, and the room felt smaller. "You see plenty," I said, my voice low. "Your photos are just moments." He interrupted. "They don't tell the whole story." "Then what's your story?" I asked, bolder than I felt. He paused, his eyes searching mine. "I don't know yet, but I'm starting to think you're part of it." My heart stopped. Before I could respond, someone called his name, and he was pulled away, leaving me reeling. The party blurred into chaos. But Ethan's words echoed in my head. "I'm starting to think you're part of it." What did that mean? Was he flirting? Or was I reading too much into a throwaway line? I spent the rest of the night watching him laughing with friends. snapping photos, being the Ethan everyone loved. But every time our eyes met, there was something new, something that made my chest tight. I left early, claiming a headache, and retreated to the guest room. I didn't sleep. I wrote instead, pouring my heart into my notebook. Words I'd never show anyone. Lines about love that felt like drowning. About wanting someone who might never want you back. By dawn, I was exhausted, but the words had calmed the storm inside me. The next day, Jamie cornered me in the kitchen. "All right, Bill, what's going on with you and Ethan?" I froze, my coffee mug halfway to my lips. "Nothing's going on." He crossed his arms, his expression serious. "Lucas, I'm not blind. You're in love with him, aren't you?" The world tilted. I set the mug down, my hands shaking. I don't know what you're talking about." "Bullshit." His voice was gentle, but firm. "I've seen the way you look at him. And I saw him last night, watching you when you weren't looking. So what's stopping you?" I laughed, bitter. "Everything. He's your brother. He's Ethan. And I'm just me." Jamie's face softened. "You're not just anything, Lucas. You're my best friend. And you're one of the best people I know. If you love him, tell him. He's not as clueless as you think." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "It's not that simple. My parents. My life's complicated." He sighed, pulling me into a hug. "I know. But you deserve to be happy. And Ethan, he's a mess. But he's a good guy. Give him a chance." I didn't know how to respond. Jamie's support meant everything. But it also made it real. If I told Ethan, there was no going back. That evening, Ethan texted me, "Meet me at the pier. Got something to show you." My heart raced as I grabbed my jacket and headed out. The Portland waterfront was quiet, the river reflecting the city lights. Ethan was waiting by the railing, his camera in hand, a scarf loose around his neck. "Hey," he said, smiling. "Thought you might like this." He handed me his camera, the screen showing a photo he'd taken at the party candid of me, leaning against the wall, my face soft and unguarded. "You looked different," he said, "like you were carrying something heavy." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Maybe I was." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Lucas, I'm not good at this. Feelings, talking, whatever. But you're not just Jamie's friend to me. You're more." My heart stopped. "What are you saying?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know. I just know I keep thinking about you. Your laugh. Your quiet way of seeing everything. I took that photo because I couldn't stop looking at you. Couldn't breathe. Ethan. I don't," he said, his voice soft. "Don't say anything yet. Just think about it. Okay." He walked away, leaving me with his camera and a heart ready to burst. The next week was a blur. I replayed Ethan's words, his photo, his eyes. I wanted to believe him, but fear held me back. What if he changed his mind? What if I wasn't enough? And my parents, what would they say if they knew? I saw Ethan again at a coffee shop, where he was editing photos. He waved me over, and we really talked for the first time. About his travels, my writing, our fears. He told me about his ex, A guy who'd broken his heart years ago. And I told him about growing up hiding who I was. It was raw, real, and terrifying. "You're brave," he said, his hand brushing mine. "Hiding all that and still showing up every day." I shook my head. "I'm not brave. I'm terrified." He smiled, soft and warm. "That's what makes you brave." We started spending more time together, late-night drives, walks along the river, quiet moments in his car with music playing low. Every touch, every glance, was electric. But we didn't cross that line. Not yet. One night, we ended up at his studio, a tiny loft filled with prints and camera gear. He showed me his latest project. Photos of people on the fringes, homeless artists, drag queens, kids like me who didn't fit in. "I want to tell their stories," he said. "The ones nobody sees." "You see them," I said, my voice thick. "You see me." He looked at me, his eyes intense. "I do." He kissed me then, slow and tentative, like he was afraid I'd break. I kissed him back, pouring every unsaid word into it. It was everything I'd dreamed of, warm, desperate, real. But when we pulled apart, the fear crept back in. "Ethan, I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. "My family, my life, it's too much." He cupped my face, his thumbs brushing my cheeks. "We'll figure it out. Together." Together. That word carried me through the next month. But it also terrified me. Ethan and I were careful, stealing moments when Jamie wasn't around, keeping our budding relationship quiet. It wasn't shame, it was survival. I wasn't ready to face the world. Not yet. But the world has a way of forcing your hand. My parents came back from California, and I went home for a weekend. Dinner was tense. Their questions about school and my future heavy with expectation. I wanted to tell them about Ethan, about the boy who made my heart sing. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I nodded and smiled. The dutiful son. Back in Portland, Ethan noticed the change. "You're pulling away," he said one night, as we sat in his car, the rain drumming on the roof. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I love you, Ethan. But what if this breaks everything?" He took my hand, his grip steady. "It won't. And if it does, we'll rebuild it." His certainty gave me courage. But not enough. The turning point came unexpectedly. At a family dinner at the Carter house. Jamie, Ethan, and I were joking around, the table warm with laughter. Then Jamie's mom, Karen, asked about my dating life, her tone teasing but kind. I froze, my fork clattering to the plate. Ethan's hand found mine under the table, a silent anchor. I took a breath, my heart pounding, and said, "Actually, I'm seeing someone. Ethan." The room went quiet. Jamie's eyes widened, but he grinned. "Called it." Karen blinked, then smiled, reaching across to squeeze my hand. "I'm happy for you both." Ethan's dad, quieter but kind, nodded. "As long as you're good to each other." Tears stung my eyes. It wasn't perfect, but it was acceptance. More than I dared hope for. Jamie pulled me into a hug later, whispering, "Told you he's not clueless." But my parents were another story. I told them a week later, over the phone, my voice shaking. My mom was silent, then said, "We need time." My dad didn't speak at all. It hurt, but Ethan was there, holding me as I cried, promising we'd face it together. Spring came, and with it, a new kind of hope. Ethan and I were out now, at least to our friends and his family. We walked hand in hand at the Saturday market, his camera capturing our laughter. My parents were still distant, but they'd started texting. Small steps toward understanding. One evening, we sat on the same cliff from Ethan's photo, the ocean stretching endless before us. I leaned against him, his arm around me, and for the first time, I felt free. You were chasing something you couldn't name, I said, remembering his caption. He kissed my forehead. I named it. It's you. The ache didn't vanish overnight. There were still nights I cried. Not from pain but from the weight of love. Of being seen. Ethan wasn't perfect, he was messy. Impulsive. Human. But he was mine. And I was his. And in that messy, beautiful truth, I found something worth fighting for. We were more than a secret. More than a guest in each other's lives. We were a story, still being written, one brave step at a time.